Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inzo an Götze.
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. Today I'm joined by Ali and Brian, and we're going to be talking about a disappointing loss in Wolfsburg and a tremendous victory over the advertising firm in that match. And then we got some other topics. Basically, we're going to be looking at some of the transfer business that Dortmund has done in recent years to see maybe why we don't have as much depth and some players we've let go on the cheap. And then we're going to be talking about some candidates that Dortmund should look into if Sahin cannot correct the run of form we've been on. Obviously a good game this week, but we're going to be doing what the club should be doing, and that's just a little bit of due diligence to get you guys ahead of anything if some negative results creep back in. And then we're going to be talking about the Champions League match coming up against Sturm Graz and the match against Mainz. So first of all, though, how are you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm chilling. I'm happy we won something. It's been a little topsy turvy, but yeah, man, I'm good, healthy. That's all that matters, right, Brian?
Absolutely, health is wealth, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of football, yeah, I mean, stark contrast from how I felt on Tuesday. Just went from doom and gloom to elation. It's like every single time we beat RB, it's a chance to celebrate. So I'm a very happy guy right now.
Yeah, like honestly, without Schalke in the league and with the way Bochum's played this season, this is the match that I wanted to win more than anything this season. I don't care about the Champions League, don't care about Bayern as much. Like, to me, beating Advertising FC twice a year, every year, it should be the priority. I think the club's spoken about it a little bit in the past, and it was very important to get this result too, because historically, coming into this match, they had one more win all time against us than we had, and so now we're back on level terms, and hopefully in the second half of the season, in Leipzig, we can beat one of the lesser Leipzig teams, with respect to Lokomotiv Leipzig and Chemie Leipzig, the bigger sides in that city. Anyway, so let's start with the first match of the week. DFB Pokal lost to Wolfsburg. We started pretty much every fit senior player. What did you guys see in that match?
I saw something that we had discussed about last season that we didn't want to see this season, which was overworked players. You just mentioned it, how our starting lineup hadn't really changed from previous games. Typically, in a cup game, you do rotate because not only do you want to give people a chance, you also want to give your starters, right, some rest, even if it's just 45 minutes. It helps, right? But no, the only starter that we could say hasn't been starting every game and actually played that game was Bayer, right? And even then, that's great, but you also started Girassi and Gross as right back, and Nemecha, and obviously Brandt, right, as more of an 8. And that was the first issue, and I think we discussed that prior to the game. And then in the game, you just saw them getting tired, and we were getting pressed, and it just would have been nice to have some rotation. And I think that's ultimately what led to that result. But yeah, that's mainly what I left the game with. It was an unfortunate mismanagement of players, in my opinion.
I think with the choices that we saw on the field, it's kind of like what we talked about on our previous episode. It was the choice between Sahin going with youth and possibly giving them some minutes, or going with proven players. And you mentioned Gross. And I think that's one of the biggest examples of a player where if you wanted experience, he was the only one really that could fill that right back role. So that's why we saw that. But yeah, I mean, the one word that I can use to describe this match is gridlock, which is what we saw for a lot of the game. And I mean, the goal in itself that gave Wolfsburg the win, you have Ben Sebaini not being able to compete with Jakub Kaminski in the box, which to me is interesting to say the least, because Kaminski isn't the biggest guy. And Ben Sebaini does have a propensity to be good in the air, at least he was at Gladbach. So you have basically Ben Sebaini allowing him to be able to take the ball down and put the ball into his teammates, and basically that kind of creates that whole chaos that we saw in the box, and then the goal comes from there. So it's kind of just like, I think it just came down to kind of like what you're saying, Ali, like everyone's kind of just tired, and at that point, so late in the game, 120 minutes in, things like that happen. Like throughout the game we had the better chances, in my opinion, especially through Bayer,
at least for the first 90 minutes. I'd give Wolfsburg a little credit after.
Right. Well, that's I think where some of the fatigue came in as well. But you had Bayer have that chance very early on. I believe it was like 14th minute or something where he hits the post. And it's just like, if that goes in, it's a different game. But still very disappointing. Far too early to get knocked out. Yeah, it was demoralizing.
Yeah, a little bit of bad luck. And again, I think one of the things you can really complain about is like, if you're going to play all your senior players when you're experiencing an injury crisis, in a cup match, that cup match becomes a must-win. And if you look at Wolfsburg, their best two attackers historically in terms of goals and assists, Jonas Wind, Thiago Tomas, they both started on the bench. And one of the differences in this match is Wind scores the winner coming off the bench. Bit of fresh legs, and you could really see, like, in the end, like, yes, Ben Sebaini's beaten by a player who's not known for his dominance in the air, but Ben Sebaini's putting in a 120-minute shift at left back.
Right.
Knowing he has to play 90 minutes on the weekend because the backup left back got sent off the previous weekend, a couple days ago. So, again, it's just like, we could have just kept 5 million and then we'd be fine, but he'd have.
We keep going back to it, but it's true.
I mean, we'll have a whole segment on it later, but that's like one of the biggest things to me. Like, if we had played Filippo Mane, Cole Campbell from the start, who was excellent off the bench, no end product whatsoever, but I believe that was his, that was far and away the first time he'd played significant minutes, beyond like a cameo, and his pressing was unbelievable. Really shocked me, like the pace and speed. Like, I knew he was quick, but he was running very quickly. He was all over the place, and the pressing was very, very good. And that, as a young player, will earn you minutes. And I think we're starting to see that. Like, I think even if Duranville comes back, Cole Campbell's got a better fitness history. And if he can start to just get like 10, 15 minutes at the end of games, it's going to be a bit harder for Duranville to break back in. He obviously has a bit more talent on the ball. I think that's fair to say. But if you're going to press the way Cole Campbell is pressing, like, that will earn you 15 minutes every single game and give Dortmund an option on the wings we haven't seen since like Thomas Tuchel's year, where we had Dembele and Emre Mor and Christian Pulisic, and Andre Schürrle, and Marco Reus was still fast enough at that time to play on the wings. So even though like Emre Mor's obviously not panned out, and not been a great player, when he was coming off the bench in that season, he was very effective just because he could like run very fast and he'd be very busy about the pitch, which would make up for your like lack of talent. And the same for like Pulisic and all these guys. Dortmund scored so many goals from substitutes that season because you could just get fresh legs on the wings, and that makes such a huge difference. So I think Cole Campbell could really be the start of that, especially when Adeyemi comes back, and just providing like actual winger activities, something that I've criticized Mullen for not doing, because he did carry the ball forward as well, which is again something that you want your wingers to do.
Yeah, overall, it was a tough watch because you could see the players slowly getting tired, and like you guys mentioned, Ben Sebaini should be winning those duels, all right, but his legs are just exhausted, and we saw it even in the game against Leipzig. It's like the 70th, 80th minute, and he's trying to make an overlapping run, but it looks like it's in slow motion because he's tired. He's playing so much, and he doesn't have a backup option, and
And he's
that's
dealing with
like
like
that's
minor ankle issues now, I believe they said,
there you go.
following this match. And there's a couple
Hmm.
guys like that where typically you might see them like rotated out for like a game because they're like 90%. Now they're playing and they're playing 90 minutes. Just because that's
So
the situation.
just to put it in perspective for you guys, it's a full 13 players that are injured, and a lot of them are first team players. So it's really bad right now. Like, we can't underscore, like, this is a crisis. In terms of injuries, it is 100% a crisis.
Yeah, like Paulina was signed with like maybe in a year he can get a look at the first team. Um, this guy's just come over from the Netherlands. Um, he before this weekend he had 2 goal contributions for the second team, and now he's up with the first team, and that's just what it is. And he's made 2 appearances now, and at the start of the season, I don't think anyone was planning on that, but that's what the situation is. Um, Scored a brace this weekend now to double his uh, goal contribution tally in the second tier or third tier, excuse me. So that's pretty good if he's going to be forced to play considerable minutes. Um, Hetver scored again. I believe he had an assist as well, but reporting won't be good on that for a day or so. But Lars Ricken said of the situation is weighing on all of us, including me. I have overall responsibility for the sport. Criticism is justified, and yet I remain combative. It is my job to work with the coach and the sporting management who work with the team on a daily basis to find solutions. We started with a lot of enthusiasm. Our transfer phase and the squad were viewed favorably. We all thought that we would be in a different position today. Now we have to draw the right conclusions. And so that kind of gets into some of the cheap exits we're going to be talking about today. And initially, I was looking at 4 names, um, and those names like have pretty considerable heft to them because you have Tom Rotha for 5 million. That's 3 goals and assists this season in 532 minutes. He has not started 3 games for Union Berlin. They are winless in those 3 matches, including losses to Bayern Munich, which kind of limits the stat a bit. But also they lost to Paderborn when he did not start. He did come off the bench in that match, and they drew the first match of the season to Mainz, who are not doing as well as Union are. So pretty solid there. You have Sumela Koulibaly, statistically not blowing anything up, but center backs and statistics don't necessarily go together. But regardless, he has 500 League One and UCL minutes this season. Um, and as a fourth center back option, it is a bit more capable than destabilizing other areas of the squad. You have Yusufa Mukoko, who's still contracted to the club out on loan, and if we're going to be playing Bayer mainly on the right wing, he could potentially rotate for Brandt, rotate for Garasi here or there. 4 goals or assists on the season, and he's contributing a goal every 92 minutes. That's pretty good. Sample size again very small this season. And then you have previously Ansgar Nauf, scored again this weekend, left for 5 million. He has had 759 to 2109 minutes over the last 4 seasons, anywhere in that range. So again, like some of the campaigns he's had with Eintracht Frankfurt, you're not talking about a ton of minutes. And that's just league minutes, I guess. So like I don't think he ever would have gotten 2100 league minutes for Dortmund, but in his first season, he only had 759 for Frankfurt. That's a guy that could do a job for you. Plays four different positions essentially: right back, right wing, left back. Um, 15 goal contributions across all of his minutes. And then we had, this is what stood out to me, 13 contract exits, including Royce, who's basically retired. Over the last, I believe it was 3 or 4 years I looked at. That to me is the problem.
I think of the names you mentioned, especially initially, I mean, we harp on this all the time. I think Rota was the biggest one, particularly because of how thin we already are at left back. So, I guess kind of just to like get into like what the thought process was behind that. I guess you kind of got to look at like the squad planning, and this is actually something I just recently wrote about in a piece that should be coming out later today or early morning, I should say, because it was talking about the whole Rota exit clause thing and how soon should Dortmund think about bringing him back and all that. But if you look at kind of the squad planning that we did, we brought in Gross, who also, as we're seeing now, in under duress, he's playing right back. We had Sula, who can also play right back. We had Rierson, who can play left and right. We had Kuto and Bensebaini. And I guess they thought that maybe that would be enough. But also, in that sort of same vein, you're also not, like kind of like what you said, they got rid of Koulibaly. We don't have at least a fourth center back that we apparently trust because Mane is not getting any minutes. So you kind of put yourself in a situation where it's like, not only is fullback super thin, the other players that you thought would be able to possibly fill in, those positions are also super thin, and a lot of those players are already injured. So you end up in kind of a catch-22 situation, which makes the exit for Rota, even more surprising than it is. And I know it's more so that he wanted to leave for minutes, but it's just interesting that Dortmund couldn't kind of show him the path to more minutes. And we've said this before. Eli, I believe you've said this quite a few times as well, where it's like, it just doesn't make any sense as to how they couldn't show Rota the path to more minutes in what is going to be the longest season that this club has had in terms of games and minutes. So, yeah, it's just a mismanagement, in my opinion, when it comes to squad planning to let a player like that go.
Yeah, so, like, the best case scenario for Tom Rotha this year, I think, you're looking at what he got around last year, which is 2,500 minutes. Borussia Dortmund's going to be playing around 5,000 minutes this season. So you're essentially just saying to him that there's 0% chance you compete for a starting role, and then the minutes you're going to be getting are going to be inconsistent, and you don't want to spend like the first 5 months of the season with like looking up and you're at, oh, I got like 450 league minutes, like another
That's
100
exactly
in
it.
like the Champions League. You don't want to be looking up at that. But like Bensebaini has been very good this season, but Tom Rotha has been better. He's been more important to his side. I honestly did not expect him to immediately come in, and I know they play Trimmel in a back five, and Trimmel as a wing back plays as if he's in a back four. He's very conservative in that way, but Tom Rotha is still like, anytime they're not going into the channels, the ball's going to Tom Rotha almost. So they're really, really playing through him, and then against a lot of the weaker teams, they're asking him to get in the box as a striker because he's so good at getting on the end of chances. Like, this is a player that you could like just do weird things with and find minutes if you needed. Because like, if we had gotten in like the current situation where we had very few attacking changes, potentially you can play Rotha at left wing with like a 1 goal lead for the last 20 minutes against Leipzig. Like there's weird things you can do. You have to be able to like tell these guys, look, like there's going to be an injury. you're going to have to wait to get consistent minutes until there's an injury. But once there's an injury, you can take your chance and not look back. And we think you're at that stage. And that communication's not there. But to me, seeing the 13 contract exits was even more jarring, because if you talk about 13 contract exits, you're talking about Thomas Meunier there. You're talking about Nico Schultz, who is a terrible person. You're talking about, and like that's an exception. But even if you get rid of the exception of Nico Schultz being a terrible person, you get rid of Royce, who's retiring, Matt Hummels, who had a dust up. That's 10 over like the last 3 like windows. And you got to be able to make, like, even if it's 5 to 10 million for a backup player, you can't be giving out that many bad contracts that you can't even get rid of early for like a couple million, because then instead of having to sell Tom Rotha for 5 million, you sold like Marius Wolf a year earlier for like 2 to 3 million, and then all of a sudden like the books are balanced and you're able to turn the like chump change from your like backup players into eventually a better player, and your bad contracts leave earlier. Like so that to me is like the bigger issue, because you look at like Marius Wolf, like so many guys just leaving on free contracts. To me, like I was looking at like
That's
the
a
summer
big
we
issue.
sold Jude Bellingham, and the second biggest sale was Ansgar now for 4.5 or something like that. And like if you're selling some of your like Torgan Hazard for like 5 to 10 million, um Torgan Hazard, like, yes, he played at like wingback and whatever, but he was a 28-year-old who didn't want to do that for like an extended period of time. Whereas when Ansgar now is trying to break into professional football, if he's playing for a Champions League side where he came through the academy, he's going to be a bit more likely to stay around the squad and get his 759 minutes at left wing back, or at left back and at right back, and then a little bit at right wing, before at like 24, when you hit the peak age for a winger, you start to actually get your appearances on the wing.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. I remember at the in the preseason part of me when we started seeing Sahin deploy this back three. He was using Tom Rotha, and in the back three, not even as a wing back, right? And I think Sahin didn't expect to abandon the back three, back five system. So he's like, well, I already have enough center backs. I don't need this guy, and I'm not gonna play him on the wing because I'm just gonna use my wingers.
Enough is funny.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that, I think that was the approach from his end. And then it's like I think that's what led them to the sale. And then as soon as he switched to a back four, he's like, well, damn, I actually don't have enough left backs. I just have a bunch of wingers. Oh, a lot of them are getting injured because I'm overplaying them, and so on and so forth. Nauf would have been ideal for the team right now. I always liked him even after he left. And watching like the Frankfurt games, he's great. He just he runs his heart out. And yeah, I agree with with Eli. There's a lot of like nonsensical business decisions and footballing decisions that are like really just they put us in a hole, and we're seeing the effects now. But it's like you guys said, this is like it's not a one season thing. It's been a couple seasons, and it's just starting to pile up. But yeah, there's a lot of exits that shouldn't have been what's what I'm looking for. A lot of exits that shouldn't have happened. I lost my English. But yeah, Mukoko and obviously Koulibaly. But yeah, man, no, it's weird because I don't even know how Sahin wants to like go forth in the season? Like, is he gonna, stick to the 4-4-2 system that he's been playing in the last few games, or is he gonna go back into a back three once everyone is healthy? You know what I mean? Is he gonna overplay Adeyemi when he's back healthy? Like this. Like I'm now concerned. I know he's a young manager, and he's there's gonna be some odd decisions and things like that. I'm not Shaheen out. I actually quite like his approach. It's just there's certain decisions because of his lack of experience. They're starting to show now.
Yeah, well, maybe Cole Campbell uses the injury and then he joins like the front line. Although having Duranville, Campbell, Adeyemi, Bayer all in the front line, all in the top like 2%, all in the top 2% of sprinters is not necessarily the most promising thing for keeping the injury bug away.
The one thing I will say, and sorry to just jump in, is because you mentioned with regards to the sales, I mean, the one thing that I can think of that could possibly have been one of the main issues that we've seen a lot more of these players leave on a free than not is probably the wages, because maybe even if some of them weren't necessarily the level that Dortmund obviously wanted them to be at or had dropped their level. Like, for example, you mentioned Hazard. I feel like with him, I feel his wages were fairly high, especially for, the level he was playing at. So even if you were to move on to like a PSV or wherever, any sort of permanent deal, you do have that stumbling block. So a lot of the time, letting them go for free or without a fee, which has happened. For example, I mean, I believe Meunier left early without a fee or anything like that. Like you're getting. I think the whole point was to get the wages off the books as well, because they knew that because of those wages, they wouldn't be able to get a profit. Well, not a profit, but a sale. So, I mean, that's the one thing that I can think of that maybe marred kind of some of their attempts to get these players off the books faster.
Yeah, but it's bad squad building when you have 3 of those guys on expiring contracts.
Yeah.
A year for 3 straight years. Which is more like the problem I meant with that. Like, bad contracts will happen, but having 9 guys to that effect, and that's like accounting.
No, it shouldn't be as extensive as it was.
And that's accounting for, like, I didn't include retirements in there. Like Rafael Guerrero, for instance, was like he left in his age 30 season on a free. If he had left in his age 29 season, you could be talking about replacing him with the $30 million transfer you get. Like, this guy had a lot of suitors. So, like, it's not all, like, players that were bad. And again, with, like, Torgan Hazard, he was, like, our leading creator his first season here. He had, like, 11 assists. And that's a player who you could receive a fee for, but we simply did not. And so you need to, like, yes, it's like, players are bad and they're on high players are playing bad, they're on high wages, but there's a point for a lot of these guys where they would have had suitors. I don't know if Thomas Meunier ever would have, but like Torgan Hazard at a certain point would have had suitors, but you just hold on to them for too long, and that's a skill, and you need to know when to sell, and when to, like, hold on. And I think Wolf did, like, a good job finding a role where he could, like, get some value for him. But again, like,
a utility role.
Maybe that's a player that's playing in a deep block and is running onto crosses and hitting the same cutback every time, and it's not necessarily something that will translate into a possession side. Like, some of these are bad signings, some of these are bad contracts, some of these are guys you hold on for too long. But overall, there was an issue at that time. Like, we have a different sporting director in now. But before Kale, there were serious issues in terms of knowing when to sell and consistently signing players that could fit the system. And I'm not sure those problems are 100% gone. But let's move on, and we can kind of get into the Leipzig match. So what did you guys see that went differently in this one?
I mean, I hope I'm not alone in saying this, but the first half was like was playing with my heart a little bit because we had control and then we lost control and then we had control and then we lost control, and it was just I never really felt safe. I know that obviously Leipzig were very compact, and we were trying to break them down, and they weren't really giving us a lot of space through the middle, but second half I was very happy with. It was a lot more open. We found, passes. We created a lot of chances. We should have scored a lot more. Eli will definitely get into that later. But yeah, I think overall, I'm just happy. 3 points. Shout out Nemecha. I never thought I'd say that. But yeah, I'll take the 3 points, and it was cool for me.
I actually think, because when I think back to the first half, I think because I rewatched portions of it, particularly even the goal that Leipzig scored. I don't find it as damning as I initially did. I mean, yes, you do have Chan, I guess, kind of like slipping and allowing that ball from Openda to meet Sheshko. But when you look at that shot, it's point blank range and right over the keeper. Like, that thing is barreling in.
It's tough.
So, like, yeah, it's a tough thing to save regardless. And how many matches has Meyer played?
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, considering how we came out, I mean, you had Jamie Gittins with that chance from where Brandt like basically played the ball square across the box. That was like a blatant chance. He had more than one throughout the game. Bayer had one initially in the first half as well. So we were creating stuff. So I guess like Leipzig's goal kind of came like against the run of play a little bit, which I mean that can happen. But overall, I don't think we ever really lost control. I think we definitely like gave them a run for their money. And by the time like we got into the second half, we really took the game by like the scruff of the neck. And yeah, it was great. It was a completely like 180 from a complete 180, I should say, from what we had seen in the past three matches that had been losses. And I love the fact that not only were the attacks looking kind of more fluid, but also everyone was defending together. Like the amount of like runs back that Girassi and Bayer would make to help in making sure that Leipzig didn't score. Like you had Girassi like clearing stuff from like the line, like well not the line of the goal, but like making sure like things didn't go out for corners. Like it was really great to see all that. And then I mean we'll get into stars and duds of the week and all that. But I mean you had Emre Can even putting in like one of the best performances I've seen him put in quite some time. But yeah, I mean it was great. And I haven't mentioned my guy yet, but I'm saving that. Because I called this. That he would score his first goal against Leipzig. So I'm very proud of that. But I'll shut up now. Eli, you go ahead.
Yeah, so coming into this match, Petr Gulashi had been saving, like he was 0.47 per 90 better at saving shots on target than expected. And that's taking into account like what quadrant of the goal the shot is being placed. He's had one season in his career that was remotely similar to what he's doing this season. And like the season he had that was like that would have been in 2018-19 when he was 28. He's now 34. He's 0.1 better per 90 at the stat I just mentioned this season than that season. He saved 11.9 goals that season. He's currently at 3.5, which is basically what Kobel was at all of last season. If he maintains this rate of saving, like he should be in consideration for the Ballon d'Or. Like this is not something that we would have seen. When he saved like 12 goals, that's not a number that Allison has hit. That's not a number Ter Stegen has hit. And that's in part because they play for bigger clubs that concede less XG. So there's less for them to like statistically accumulate. But in terms of the percent of XG he is saving right now, it's quite frankly stupendous. Leipzig's positioning for both their goalies, their other goalies only played 45 minutes, so the sample size is tiny. but he's also at like plus 0.8, which is just like a good 45 minutes, I guess. Cool. But like basically Leipzig's defense has not been spectacular, but their goalies have. So if you're looking at the expected goals allowed, Leipzig is actually just above us. Coming into this match day, they're now going to be below us. They had conceded the same. The difference is in terms of goals conceded coming into the match day. They had conceded 3. We conceded 14, and that's because Gregor Kobel is off to an atrocious start. He's -4. They're plus a million in terms of goals saved. Versus what the XG conceded would have you believe. So they're just getting massively lucky, and having some exceptional goalkeeping play. Like that should not sustain itself over the course of a season. Like in Gulashi's prime, he had one season that is like an outlier amongst all his seasons. And you would expect that at some point, like a worldie goes in, it brings it down. It's not like when a player's overperforming XG and it only goes up, because just because you're like outperforming your XG doesn't mean you're gonna underperform your XG for the second half of the season. Like you should end up back in line over like the course of your career, unless you're a plus finisher, which a lot of players are. But with goalkeeping, it's a bit different because every time you concede a goal, it goes down. And they're at the point where like I think Brandt has like a half volley that gets a bit of a shin, but if it goes a couple like inches in either direction, it goes off his foot and into the back of the net. There's nothing he can really do about it, but it gets hit where his foot is already planted. Like, yes, his positioning is perfect, but it also goes directly to his foot. And then he makes a couple nice saves in one-on-ones, and credit to him, he's playing like he's standing on his head right now, but that's not going to sustain itself for the rest of the season. We actually, by underlying numbers, have more XG than them this season. Like, they've not necessarily, like, coming into this match day, and it's going to get worse with this match. So I've been talking about some of the devil magic of the advertising firm, and, like, they kind of somehow lost, but still kept up with some of the devil magic because they overperformed their XG. And they have some incredible finishers, so that's to be expected, like Sheshko. Limited sample size in his entire career, but he's still an incredible finisher. Apenda's not bad. Xavi Simons, incredible finisher. Like, they have these guys, but they're so far above and beyond anything. And basically, like, statistically, we've been a better side than them coming into this game, and at home, we kind of dominated them.
Yeah, the best part about this is that hopefully, with a win in the Great Rosa Derby, we can help facilitate their downfall, because we were the first team to beat them. That they were unbeaten in the Bundesliga up until this point. So it's a very Dortmund result. Lose to Wolfsburg in the middle of the week, looking drab, and then you somehow manage this. I don't know. It's
and
great.
To me, like, I'm seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter, like, from so many people saying, like, we sacked Marco Rosa, like, justice for Marco Rosa. If he was still the coach of this club, we might have won something. And it's like, people forget that he finished below, like, an insurgent Stuttgart side when he was having, like, an all-world season from Xavi Simons and a run where Sheshko scored on, like, 10 straight shots or something. Like, this guy is not that great a coach. He finished 4th because we had the worst Dortmund side in like 6 years. Like, that's why he finished 4th. And before that with Leipzig, like, finished 3rd. Like, that's where you should, when Bayer Leverkusen has like one of their worst seasons ever. And has like the first half of the campaign and they're in like 14th. Before Xabi Alonso obviously takes over. So we shouldn't just get like the grass is always greener on the other side, whatever. We're looking back on the past and forgetting about all the issues that Rosa had. because he didn't necessarily play that well with a very good Dortmund squad at the time. And like that, his side this season should be statistically performing. Very small sample size. They've played a very difficult run of fixtures, but it's performing like his worst side so far. Maybe when they play like Holstein Kiel and St. Pauli, it's like 5-0 on XG, and they start to look a bit better in both of those games. But again, like, don't just put on the rose-tinted glasses, because he's had a lot of luck to start the season, and his crowning achievement so far in his career is finishing above the worst Dortmund side in like 5-6 years. So,
and a Pokal
and a Pokal
with them.
Hey,
I mean, I'm just
can't
gonna
forget the
put this
Pokal.
out there so it's on the record, and then Ali, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
But no, I mean, like, with Rose, I guess I am one of those people that is like, I think he did leave too soon. And I think we look back at the season and we forget the massive injury issues that we had that season either. If players are more fit that season, I think we do have a different finish from him. Obviously, the European journey with him was atrocious, to say the least. But not putting on the rose-tinted glasses or anything, but I do want to just put that in there and say that the guy just had one season. I think we can only really think so much about what could have been with that. So there was some good, some bad, I mean, as with most coaches. You never know. We might have been in a similar position that we were with at Terzic.
Yeah, definitely a harsh firing. I agree there. I just meant that he wasn't good, and it wasn't like good enough to justify saving him. And I think that afterwards he hasn't necessarily proved Vatska and Terzic wrong, because Terzic kind of achieved more than he has, honestly, with a lot of luck as well. But anyway, let's get into a more positive segment. That's our star of the week. I think Brian has been raring to go. He's kind of leaked out who it is, but who is your star of the week, Brian?
Maximilian Bayer. And I've been waiting for this moment since this boy signed for this
desk.
club.
He's ruining the audio.
I'm gonna keep hitting it. No, it's great. Like, this is a player that we knew coming into this season what he was capable of. 16 goals, 1 assist with Hoffenheim. Coming in, played sporadically. Clearly, the pressure was coming down on him, even though he's 21 years old, I believe it is at this point. And it's just like, this guy is so young. He's shown so much promise, and finally, in what was, in my opinion, a must-win for Dortmund at this point, because the results have just not been there. He comes in super clutch. Like I said, 1 goal, 1 assist, all over the pitch, tenacious as can be, showing that he wants to be there and showing that he can be a real asset going forward. So I'm just super excited for him. I really hope this is kind of what breaks that mental block or whatever it was. And I guess you could even say that he's just been really unlucky. Like, a lot of the shots that he's missed, like, they've just been inches away from going in. And it's just he really needed this. There was an interview that he did with the club after the game. I believe it was some point today that it came out, and you could just see the relief on his face. And I don't know, I was just so happy for him. So yeah, my star of the week, 10 out of 10 player. Can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic. He's only 22, right? Like, he's still
21, I think.
He's U21 eligible.
What does that mean?
He started the year under 21. He might have had a birthday.
Okay. I got you. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, he's fantastic.
I'm on the
he
research.
just needs a bit of composure. All right, perfect.
Oh, 22 years old.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. He just needs a bit of composure, because there was a chance. I can't remember who. Maybe it was Benzabaini? No, I can't remember. But it was in the second half, where he touches it and he shoots it inside the box, completely misses the net, and I'm like, hit the target. You're right there. But for me, man of the match was Nemecha. I'm liking him under Sahin. I don't know what he's done to him what like instructions he's been given, but he's he's been great. He's distributing the ball fantastic, and since moving Chen to the back, which gives me heart palpitations. But seeing Nemecha as the six, like it's been nice. He's kind of like an unsung hero. He's doing a lot. To cover obviously for Brandt, who's his partner in this game. But yeah, really liked him. He was great.
Yeah, Maxi Bayer just turned 22 in October. So belated happy birthday. Sorry we missed that.
Happy birthday, Maxi.
But my start of the week, it's going to be Nico Schlotterbeck. With Emre Can next to him, there's some passing issues out of the back because it gets a little bit easier to predict which of your center backs is going to pass the ball, which one you can allow to distribute, and you can kind of funnel us into a specific area. And they definitely tried to do that in terms of attempted long balls. Emre Can had the least, and that's because he cannot attempt the pass many times. When he gets a little bit of pressure, he just can't attempt to open his shoulders up when receiving the ball from Nico Schlotterbeck or Alex Meyer and then play it out to the right back or the right winger. So Nico Schlotterbeck can do that. His distribution was incredible. We didn't really concede any chances, and the one that did, it was essentially a ball into some space that Emre Can was supposed to be covering, and he didn't do a terrible job of it, but like that is the one center back mistake you could kind of look at in this match, and Nico Schlotterbeck did his part of the work. Obviously, he's not going to have the best understanding with Emre Can, who's not played there much, but you would expect two players that have played better to do it a bit better, but again, it's not the best shot. But Nico Schlotterbeck did all his duels, covered all his area, and his distribution this season is it's second to none, honestly.
He's been fantastic. I guess before we get into the duds, previously I've said, and I hope it's cool that I switch it up a little bit. But previously I've said that I don't mind Chan in a back three, because at least he'll have some cover. So in possession, they kind of rotated into a back three, but whenever we're setting up defensively, it was very much a back four. And in a lot of instances, right, you just saw Nico and Emre Can in the back. How do you guys feel about him in the back? Because I'm obviously joking when I say he gives me heart palpitations, but it's the biggest worry. I think that's why I was really nervous in the first half. But yeah, how do you guys feel about that?
I think the position does suit him. I mean, like I said, I feel like this particular performance was one of the best we've seen from him. And I think previously under other German national team coaches, I think he was kind of more angling towards that center back role. And because that's, I guess, what was expected of him in the German national team, that's why he was played more in that position at times. But I mean, we saw what he's capable of playing at center back in this game. He made some very good clearances. His positioning to make those clearances was very good. The one worry, once again, is mainly the pace. I mean, you had that moment we talked about with the goal with Openda being able to get past him and put that cut back into Šeško, and his lack of reaction time is kind of what allowed that opening. But I do think that, that is a good position for him. The one worry is, of course, his rash decision-making, which, to be fair, has, to a degree, toned down as he's gotten older. I feel like his first couple of years at Dortmund... Exactly. His first couple of years at Dortmund were a lot more iffy, and when you saw him in that back four or whatever it is that we were playing, the fear was, oh my God, we're going to give away a penalty. How many times has that happened? I remember, I believe it was in the still under maybe not under Favre, maybe. Under it was a game against Sevilla. I forget who the coach was, but he's in the background. In the back line, and he gives away that penalty.
Yes.
I believe that was under Favre.
I think so.
We can fact check
Yeah.
that.
We're
But
definitely not gonna fact check it. But keep going.
okay.
That's not in our capabilities.
Okay. Well, regardless, I just remember that specific game against Sevilla where he just gives away that penalty, and I'm like, oh God, like, and that's kind of the image I got of Chan, moving forward. But as he's gotten older and kind of worked that out of his game a little bit, obviously it's still in there, but less so. Yeah, I mean, he works as long as you're not putting him as a fullback, I think you're okay putting him in a back line, especially if you play like Schlotterbeck to kind of partner him. Kind of like what Eli was talking about, where it's like you have that player that can play up from the back. The preference obviously is to have two, but I mean, beggars can't be choosers right now.
I mean, you should have told Shaheen that in the Madrid game, right? Don't put Emre Can as a fullback.
Who would? I don't even know what to say to that one. Like, that's just common sense.
Exactly. Yeah. What about you, Eli?
I mean, to me, like, he doesn't know when to step up and press into midfield. He doesn't necessarily know when to drop off. I'd have issues with him if we play against a team that's going to sit a little bit deeper, because they can do even more of what Leipzig did, where if the ball's going to him, they're just going to drop off and make him hit it long. Or you're going to ask Schlotterbeck to carry it past two strikers that are pressing him, and that's not something you can really do. Because they can literally just go man for man with like your center backs and the goalie, because they can just leave Shan, and they were very happy to have Shan hit long balls because he couldn't really do it. So there's issues in build-up, and I think that will matter more against worse teams. I think that the higher line won't necessarily help him at all. I think that he did very well when he was doing the same things he would have done as a central defensive midfielder, your number 6 role, once we took the lead, because the game state was Leipzig tried to attack more, and that's when he was doing stuff he would do normally. The line was already deep, and he already drops into the back 3 in that stage of the game oftentimes in his number 6 role. So I think like he was fine there, but you can't have the lead for 100% of a game. You can't always play against a team that's going to press in the way Leipzig pressed. So I think that like Anton walks back into his spot and Emre Can walks onto the bench. And I think that has to be the correct decision. Whether it's Sula, Anton, like it's one of them. It's not Emre Can. They both have, like, people have talked about Anton's long balls this season, and they haven't been as good as they were last season, and maybe part of that is like him adjusting to the new side, adjusting to a new manager, who's adjusting to a new player, who's adjusting to a new squad. Like there's a lot of issues that you could say with Anton it should get better. With Emre Can, he's just never done it. He never will do it at this stage in his career. So that's just like what it is. And Anton's so much more press resistant.
You definitely don't keep him in when we have center backs. I mean, it's just, out of necessity. But I did fact check myself, actually. The game was in October of 2021. Edin Terzic was already coach.
Yeah, I found it too.
And it was a controversial foul on Luc de Jong. So, just figured I'd put that out there. My bad.
Yeah. No. Hey, man. It's what we're here for. You know what I mean? But yeah, if you guys don't mind, I'll jump in with my dud, because they're really...
I was about to say, we need to get it moving.
Don't worry, man. My dud...
We're having so much fun.
My dud, only because he got injured and I don't really have another option. Sabitzer, that's the only reason. But he was fine otherwise. But I kind of liked everybody in the game. Even though I harped on Chen a little bit, I didn't like the last, what was it, 30 or so. He really became, I don't know what happened to him, but he was stone cold. He was great. But I thought everybody was great.
Yeah, I mean, even like with the Wolfsburg game, like it's hard to necessarily pick like a dud, because we already talked about how this team is overworked.
I think there is one specific player who did not play well, and it is harsh, but it's Meyer.
Oh, I think I say Mullen.
No,
sorry.
I mean, you could say Mullen. Mullen didn't do anything, but like it's the same thing. It's boring to talk about. I talked about how Kobel's off to a slow start. Meyer has come in. He had a couple easy saves to make, and he had one like save that he also should have made. Like that is a very tight angle. His positioning is good, and he gets beaten for pace. That's difficult as a goalie. I was beaten for pace on significantly weaker shots. But like that is, you should be better. That's a save he should make. He knows he should make that save. And if he's gonna have to play again in the midweek and next weekend, I expect him to make it. I expect him to make that save of 8 out of 10 times. Maybe 9 out of 10. Like he should be better there. I think it's harsh. I think we can move on. I think it's not a big deal. Like you're the backup keeper. I'm not mad about it, but
for sure
you should make that save.
But the thing is, if
I will
if
say
he
the
plays...
one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ali.
No, you're good. Oldest first.
The one thing I was gonna say about Meyer and what impressed me about his game, because like you said, it is harsh. I did like his distribution play because that was top class. But in terms of like, I guess a dud for me, like I'll keep it simple and it's just simply for the game against Wolfsburg. It'll just be Bensebaini for letting that goal that ball past Kaminski. Like it's hard to pick and choose here. So yeah, that's a harsh one too. But
yeah,
just putting that out there.
If Sahin rotates, right, Meyer might be a little sharper and be
What
ready
if it's
for
Sahin? But I feel like that's Pedro's coined that already, so I can't.
But
he has a quarter of the market on that, so I can't even.
We have a whole nother segment to do, and we're already in an hour, so we got to get it moving.
Go.
Roger Schmidt. We're going to talk about our potential Sahin replacements. So this is just our short list. We're going to be sounding out candidates in case we, as the board, have to pull the trigger. Obviously, we have no actual authority and are not the board of Borussia Dortmund, but
we don't.
Unfortunately, no. So Roger Schmidt, per Sky Sports, Schmidt is a name that's been brought up, but the coach himself would want a project to start the year fresh rather than an interim role. This to me, I recently heard a podcast essentially describe Schmidt's fall off after 2 years because he has people press incredibly intensely, and after 2 years, they get tired of it, they get bored of it, and they stop doing it and it fails. But for 2 years, he's a decent manager. Not very high. This is not the top of my list. This is a guy who I think his pressing system's a little too complicated for an interim role, so I don't think he's the best fit there. But do you guys have anything else to add?
Sounds like a Mourinho. He comes in for 2 years, does a good job, and then everybody hates him. But yeah, if like all in all, I think you're right in your analysis to say like it's not really great for an interim role. If it were to be from the start of a year, I would understand it, but I don't think we're at that stage yet.
Yeah, I mean he did decently at Leverkusen. I don't really know too much about him. Other than he's a very attack-minded coach. I think it's a better name than, I guess, some other names that we could get. I mean, he's German. Not my top of the list either. But yeah, I mean, we're not really, like, for realistic options, we're not spoiled for choice for interim.
Yeah, and speaking of realistic options, I'll give an unrealistic option. And that'd be Fabian Hürzeler, young German-speaking coach that brought St. Pauli to the Bundesliga before moving on to Brighton. But unfortunately, because he moved, his contract expires in 2027. And shout out Brian for initially mentioning him as an option on our How to Fix episode, which would have had us in first place for 5 consecutive years had they done that. Unfortunately, they did not. But
he's great. Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, unrealistic, like you said. Definitely my choice if, like, fantasy were to become reality. Plays attacking football. Plays mainly with a back 4, 4-2-4, 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1. We have the players for all of that. Sometimes goes into a 4-4-2, I believe, as well. I think he's playing with 2 strikers right now with Welbeck, and I forget who the other player is right now up front with him
They
in the
have like
Schwartz
8
partnership.
strikers.
Yeah, so I mean, we have the players for I think the system that he plays to implement it. So I mean, yeah, I think he'd be a great fit. And
Yeah,
German.
one
So
to
there you go.
monitor as we go forward, but not for this year. Let's move on. Graham Potter. Don't necessarily know if he got the Duolingo tweet or link I tweeted at him, but hopefully he's learning a bit of German just to make his skills more marketable. He's been unemployed for a little while, but with the Chelsea payoff, he's definitely not hurting for money. Strong and convincing displays with Brighton. Doesn't speak German. Beat Arsenal with a Swedish league team, I believe Rosenborg, but I could be wrong. And he is free and available. That's what I like about him. Again, like I said, his Chelsea side did not feature Cole Palmer, did not feature Nicholas Jackson, did not feature many other guys that are currently helping them win games. So that's what I got to say about him. I'm sure we all know Graham Potter. So let's move on. Thomas Frank contract expires end of the year. So the longer we go and we wait to fire Shaheen, the cheaper Thomas Frank, or excuse me, it expires 2027. Actually, there's a 10 million buyout. I did read, because he did recently renew his contract. So that's a bit unfortunate. Danish guys are often speak a bit of German. I do hear. The buyout is a bit of an issue, but the longer you wait, like they're safe this year. Brentford is, and like they'll be amenable if you pay the release clause. Any thoughts?
I think he's a good coach. I think a lot of this comes down to what kind of identity we want moving forward. I think he's good. Now, is he gonna be the person to win us the league? I don't know, right? I think if we were to pick someone, or sorry, or to see us out to the end of the season, I think we should go for someone who um, can pull results. And I know this sounds like someone we've had in the past, but I think you know it's style and results. I sound like him now. God, it's a style versus results, and if it were to be an interim thing, I think we'd have to focus on results. So he has a great style, though. I do like him.
Yeah, Thomas Frank, very flexible, long term solution potentially. But let's get into our next one. This is Sandra Wagner. He's former Hoffenheim striker, works at the DFB as an assistant for the U20s and the senior national side for Germany. He promoted Unterhaching previously to the third tier from the regional leagues. He's very, very well regarded as a up and coming young German coach. So think of a lot of the up and coming young German coaches who go on to be very, very successful. Germany's very good at producing young coaches. This is a guy who's not necessarily ready. He might have some struggles initially, but would be more willing to take a interim role and has the potential certainly to become a very good coach.
No thoughts on my end. I don't know too much about him to be fair, but I mean, yeah, up and coming, like you said. Um, but yeah, if he hasn't had more of a job, I guess like in the first tier, I think I would steer clear of those types of candidates personally.
Yeah, I think given his resume, he's another one that you want to continue monitoring if Shaheen gets you through this year. And then he has some
Right.
early he struggles to kind of get us to progress at the end of the next campaign. This is a guy you might really want to take a very close look at, because he has so much experience as a player in the top flight. He is very, very well regarded as a coach. Like, you don't just go from Unterhaching to working as the German national team assistant without some
Right.
pedigree. So he's probably done very well. Like, talked about Nagelsmann when he came through was top of his class. But we can move on now. Edin Terzic, unemployed. I think once is enough.
There's like a meme answer, right?
Twice is enough. Maybe third time's the charm. Who
Once
knows?
is enough.
Maybe in like 5 years.
Oh, it's deadly.
Yeah. No. For me.
Once
Not
he
right now,
proves
please.
his new attacking philosophy and he gets that up and running, then we can consider it. Keep an eye
There you
out
go.
on Gladbach to hire him because they've had a slow start to the season. Did just win 4-1. We'll see if Seoane finally turns it around with like comfortably a top 8 squad. Next would be Daniel Farka. His contract expires in 2027. Leeds have the best defense in the championship this season. This is a former Dortmund second team coach. Contract expires in a long time, but Leeds in a ton of financial difficulties. Would like any compensation, but if you're gonna have to pay any compensation, not worth it. Unless you two disagree.
No, I agree. I like the idea of him, but I'm cool to wait until the contract ends.
So then you
I
have
like his.
Joachim Lowe, Jurgi Lowe, however you want to say it, currently unemployed, potentially wants to get back into club management. I'm 2 hands away. Like, please, no.
Yeah, no for me either. I'm good.
I'm indifferent. Not gonna lie.
Wait, well, now we
Keep going.
have what you've all been waiting for. It's a very big name. It's a very bald head. It's Erik ten Hag, recently sacked by Manchester United. Did some good work with Ajax, worked well with young players, especially signings of a certain Mark Overmars, who he has defended since leaving the club over sexual harassment. Validated claims. These are verified by the club by internal investigation, and there's a reason that Mark Overmars is no longer employed in the Netherlands. So he's defended him. He had some morally suspect comments that were fairly supportive of Mason Greenwood as well. And if you have seen the video, you unfortunately know that his behavior is not something that you would like to see ever. In any case scenario. So you have some moral issues. You have a good Ajax run that was a long time ago, and you don't necessarily have a ton of success. And he's terrible with the media, and he was previously employed by Bayern.
It's a no for me, right? You can't like disrespect Jadon Sancho and then try to manage our team. That doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the other thing. The disrespect to Sancho is bad too. But I mean, this is a similar situation because I mean, I believe you guys saw the reports about Roberto De Zerbi being linked as well, and it's kind of the same thing. I've seen a lot of people bemoan that one too, like, oh, why didn't we go for him? And it's like, well, this guy, initially people will say like, oh, like he can't choose like who he manages. Meanwhile, even in an interview with L'Equipe, he's basically saying, like, yeah, Mason Greenwood was, like, the first player I called. So, like, do you really want success at the cost of that? Me, no. So that's why, like, with these, like, moral issues with Erik ten Hag, I don't feel bad in any way saying no to him either. Like, yeah, like you said, Eli, he might have had a decent stint at Ajax, but...
I will other side it really quickly. If you put aside Erik ten Hag's moral issues, he also thought Antony was a better footballer than Jadon Sancho.
There you go.
He also thought he was a better footballer than Amad Diallo. So you don't necessarily want a guy who's willing to put 100 million pounds on a guy who cannot run, cannot dribble, but has like a nice left foot and can do little spins. Because I'm sure if you go to your local park, you can find a guy with a pretty good left foot, won't be as good, and he can do spins on the ball on the field for a lot less money.
Budget Antony, I'm good with that.
So you can literally just go and find like the next guy with a highlight reel like Emre Moore's, and pay him an 80th of the money.
No, shout out Emery Moore. Moore.
Like I'm saying, he's a very good dribbler. Like he's not a £100 million player. It's not Antony's fault that Erik ten Hag insisted on him for £100 million, but like that's what it was. He also like played Jadon Sancho as a 10, never even like gave him a chance on the wing. Um, he's like terrible to players, like he's falling
Get
out with
out of here.
guys. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so not necessarily anything good to
Not an
say.
attractive package.
Yeah, and terrible with the media, like genuinely atrocious with the
Horrible.
media. Has
Horrible,
no
yeah.
idea what to say. Just comes out regardless of the team performance and will tell you it's the best performance you've ever seen. So like you can avoid all of his flaws and continue to find more flaws, in my opinion. So next up, we got the Austrian champions, who, like us this past weekend, uh, have taken down a peg, a advertising club. They took down the different version in Austria, but they're done. They did their good deed, and it's time for them to be punished by Dortmund beating them at home. So my score prediction 3-0.
That's a
3-1
good
for me.
prediction.
'Cause
I was gonna
we
say
can see
3-1. Because if Myers in net and Chen is still center back, I'm still gonna have heart palpitations. So I'll give them one.
Okay, that's
So 3-1.
fair.
3-1,
We're gonna have a bit more detailed of a preview now, because more of you will be listening to this that haven't yet seen the Dortmund versus Mainz match. So Mainz have proven to be a bit of a troublesome opponent for Dortmund in recent history. Um, Over the last 32 matches, Dortmund have 19 wins, compared to just 6 defeats, with 7 draws between the two sides. Mainz haven't been exceptional this season. They haven't been terrible. I really couldn't be asked to make a prediction here with a considerable amount of detail. I'm just going to go for, this is an away match, our first away win, 2-1.
Yeah, same. I'll
Hell
go with
no.
2-1 as well. Moxie Bayer brace. Put
Oh
that out there.
man, I'll say like hopefully 1-1. Cause like away from home, it's scary. It's terrifying.
That would be our
So
second
I'll
point.
take a draw.
Away from
Yeah.
home.
So I'll take it.
Okay, and then real quick before we head out, I'll just give you the fantasy Bundesliga update. Bayern Warsaw fans still in the top spot. Edward DC4 hot on his tail. We have closed the gap, guys. It was looking like it wasn't going to happen this week, but there's now a much higher potential that we could catch him next week and knock him off the top spot. So very, very proud of you guys for catching up. Then we have the SA Germans in third, Brestov 09 in fourth, and Ryu Sanugi in fifth. And I am still comfortably top of the Dortmund Dispatch hosts, just for your awareness, even though I did have a bad week this week. So Enzo Mio let me down. Tom Roth's manager let me down, put him on the bench just to lose 3-0 and play 4 center backs. Don't know what that was about. Didn't work. Maybe play a guy who can help you escape the press. But that's just me. But is there anything you guys want to plug before we head out?
Dortmund Dispatch, 1D in the middle on Twitter. Check us out, right? We're always, I say we, they're always tweeting some hilarious stuff. So please tune in and check us out on all platforms.
Yeah, Ali covered it. Just follow us everywhere. Instagram, I promise, will become.
And we
more,
have some new YouTube
active,
exclusive
so.
content coming for you pretty soon. So we hope to get that out once we can record it, which should be pretty soon. So we have some good ideas coming your way there as well. So follow us on YouTube as well, Dortmund Dispatch there. But that'll do it for us. Have a good one.